Hi, Cherry.
Hi, Abby.
So this is part two of the cousin special, right?
Uh-huh.
So, what are the questions you wanted to ask me?
Well, why does an ant society have a queen but no king while termites do?
Well, okay, here's why I think that happens. I'm not 100% sure this is the right answer, but here's what I think. In a termite society, their food is mostly decaying plant matter, so the helping hand from the king with the queen is appreciated since they don't need to be concerned about food. But in ant society, the problem with there is that the food is actually from the queen herself. The male ants don't have a lot of muscle tissue on them. They look kind of like dragonfly wasps things, and they tend to die right after mating. So, what do you call it? The queen's back muscles are used to feed her young, but so in ants that the king being needed to be fed as well is too big of a problem for the help with the founding. But in termites, the food is no problem and the help is a good thing. So termite kings don't die after mating. So next question.
That was interesting. What is the most populous ant in the world? And can you give me a brief history on it?
The most populous ant in the world is the Argentine ant. I'll give you a brief history how it rose from a weakling power in the Parama Delta being crushed by its superpowers to taking over the world. So our story begins on the Parama Delta, where the Argentine ant fighting several civil wars and wars against its main enemies, the army and fire ants. Army and fire ants are no joke. They are some of the most dangerous ants there. Fire ants have spread all over the world, so they are extremely dangerous there, but here, oh boy, there's still a problem. And soldier and army ants, they are even worse. Everything but Atacephalotus colonies will die if they go into the pack. Like, let's say a chameleon just was walking in a trail of army ants. The chameleons, everything that walks into their hunting trails will die. And they are nomadic, so that means like if a fire ant scout discovered them and they let it charge, chances are they'll probably be gone. So it's really hard to get them, and they're extremely dangerous. Argentine ants?
Interesting. I think I read a book about army ants, and they're the top one in the book out of 10 when it comes to working together in a colony.
Yeah, because they actually form nests out of living ants. Yeah, that's no joke. They actually form nests out of their own ants. But anywho, back to the Argentine ants. They evolved to have maximized workers, soldiers. Their queens just went. A colony will probably number in the thousands by day one. That's how powerful Argentine ants are. But because of the superior technology and evolutionary powers their enemies had, they weren't taking over South America until humans came along. A few Argentine queens snuck on board a human ship, very closely related. One ship went to the Americas, the other went to Europe. And there was a problem, because nothing in the Americas or Europe knew how to fight them effectively. So instead of being surrounded by hostile enemies, like usual, they were surrounded by only victim. Oh boy, and it was a feast. Did I tell you that because they have so many queens, eventually they'll send a few workers and a queen to form new colonies? But in the Parama Delta, they'll form new kingdoms and fight their mother colony. Well, that doesn't happen here. Instead, they form like united empires, and that's one of the biggest advantages you can have. That's called super colonies, and they are very rare in ant kingdoms. Very rare, shaping the landscape. In fact, if you look at California, they wiped out several native ant species already. But their rule is being threatened. Civil wars happen all the time. In a massive empire spanning the entire world, the sun never sets on the Argentine Empire. Interesting. There are bound to be rebellions everywhere. Take the Lake Hodges Civil War. A kilometers long front has happened, and a death every second happens under the Lake Hodges Civil War. And not to mention, in America,
On to the next question. What challenges the Argentine ant empire face on the path to world domination?
well, I would say these three things. One, their old foe and worst enemy, the fire ant. Instead of staying in the Argentine deltas, they decided, you know what, screw this. We're just going to take a human ship and go somewhere else. Oh, and boy, did that somewhere else be really bad for Argentine ants. Their old and worst foe has returned. And in the America, Argentine presence in the West Coast has been completely pushed out, and all that's left of the Argentine ants in America is in South America and the West Coast, I think. East Coast. Okay, I'm really confused about where the West and East Coast is. So I'm going to say the coast that's really close to Japan, the one bordering the Pacific Ocean, is where the only Argentine ants in America live. The next, and that's not the only problem they face. They also face this civil war. In humans, civil war doesn't happen a lot. But in Argentine ants, a few colonies decide, you know what, screw this united empire, we're just taking it over. Then they defect, and for example, Lake Hodges, I told you about this, a kilometer long fronts to take the Lake Hodges. The forces holding Lake Hodges were moving against the Lake Hodges usurpers. It's still going on right now. There's no clear winner yet. And this is and the other one is very interesting. The black crazy ant, another invasive species, is going to bang some Argentine ants back to Rio de Janeiro. Oh, trust me, I know. There are very good reasons. Anyway, on to the next question.
Yep. So what is your favorite ant species and why do you like it so much?
Well, Paratentina longicornis, also known as a black crazy ant. I wrote an entire huge research paper on them, link in the description below. But these are a very powerful ant species. Tactically, and that's why they're my favorite. They have the ability to shoot acid. They're really fast. They also have the ability to form immortal colonies. Because unlike other ants, they actually replace their queens because the queens have an hair in those colonies. And not to mention the rare tactic of forming super colonies. Really nice.
So if you ask me, my favorite ant species will be the bullet ant because if you experience it right, it's gonna feel like a bullet just dodged through your arm or wherever it hit you.
Not actually bite, it's their sting that does that.
So let's move on. Alright, can you tell me about any ant that floats on water? If there are any ants that float on water?
You must be talking about fire ants. Again, I told you about them during the 2 questions about Argentine ants. Their original territories were South America, and they had to compete with a lot of bad predators there. But once they spread to the other countries, the problem is when an invasive species arrives, it usually isn't really hard to take it. So again, about the fire ants, you see they have the ability to float on water. That's why if you're like building a terrarium for them, having water to separate like between two different ant colonies and one is a fire ant colony is a bad idea because they can just cross it. Fire ants are an invasive species. The problem with invasive species is because everything in the countries they're invading don't know how to fight them, so they tend to lose badly. Yeah. Next question.
Can you tell me why the termite species have kings and not ants?
Well, it's the exact same reason I told you earlier. Kings helping to build their homes when their homes are actually filled with food, or the food, is very helpful, and it helps the queen start her colony a bit easier. In ants, it isn't helpful because the male ants also need food, and the queen doesn't have enough food to give both her babies and her, how human mothers give their babies milk? Basically, the ant version of that, the queen doesn't have enough for both her babies and her husband. So that's why ant societies don't have kings, just males. Moving on.
So we'll move on. Okay. Why are Argentine ants so effective everywhere in the world except South America?
Again, same thing I told you about invasive species. Nothing in the world knows how to fight them effectively except its ant mates back in South America. If you brought, say, a fire ant colony and a matured fire ant colony and pitted it against a matured Argentine colony, oh boy, the Argentines will have some trouble. Mature fire ant colonies can number in the millions. And they have better weaponry, stronger jaws, deadly venom, as well as a bit of armor on them. Not to mention that if you're fighting in Singapore or in the Manila area or something, they can have like majors, which are much more dangerous. So everything doesn't know how to fight the Argentine ant effectively because they didn't evolve with it. They didn't evolve to know how to counter it. Next question.
So, personally, what do you think is the deadliest ant in the world?
Well, I think it is the bulldog ant. In fact, even the science supports
Sorry, can you repeat?
I think it's the bulldog ant.
Okay.
Very dangerous ants, though their one weakness is that they hunt alone. So that means anything that's in an upper weight class against them will probably win. And in fact, I heard once that if enough bulldog ants bite you, you'll die in 15 minutes. I heard that they...
And how many bulldog and Argentine ants is that?
No. Argentine ants can't kill you. Bulldogs, I think maybe around 15. Or one can actually kill you in 15 minutes. I don't remember.
So I was asking you, which do you think is the most powerful ant in the world?
Again, I would have to say Paratrechina longicornis, black crazy ant, because one, they can move very fast. Nothing can catch up to them if you're talking insect-wise. Two, unless you're counting yellow crazy ants, nothing can catch up to them. Two, they have immortal colonies, huge powers in fighting ant wars, because let's say you're fighting a pretty big empire, about twice your size, maybe. So then you can defend against it, but the empire's queen is so old that she's about to die, right? You can only defend against it, and you can't just plunder deep into their territory and take out the queen. So 1 year later, their queen dies. But since your colony is immortal, even if your queen dies, her heir will take her place. So that means you can just absorb all their territory into your, empire. And not to mention they can form super colonies. So that means unlike most ants, even if they find members of their own species, they had to fight to the death. If a Parasittina longicornis finds a member of their own, they can form super colonies. So that means unlike most ants, even if they find members of their own species, they had to fight to the death. If a Parasittina longicornis finds a member of their own species, they can just say, hey, you want to become part of our empire? Then they can say yes or no. If no, they'll probably die a gruesome death. If yes, okay, yay, they're part of their new empire. There is a link to a document in the description, which explains this a bit more in detail. Anyway, next question.
So that was a very interesting topic about ants and termites, and I think we should end it here.
So you don't have any questions you are really interested about?
Well, I do have one question. How come that termites, why are termites dangerous for wood?
Wood? Not all termites are dangerous for wood. Most termites actually, if you look at African termites, they construct huge mounds out of dirt. And some termites actually build entire nests out of their own poop. Yes, that is very much true. But some termites actually eat wood as their source of food. So that's why they're so dangerous to wood. Fun fact.
That was very interesting. And I really liked the knowledge of your ants and termites.
Oh yeah, fun fact, do you know that termites are more closely related to cockroaches than they are to ants?
No, I did not know that. That was a very interesting fun fact.
So
Okay, so bye, Abby.
Bye, Sherry. Hope we can do another collaboration video soon. Hope we can.
You too.
Bye.